Welcome to episode 1476 of The Sleeper in the Bus. I am Justin Mason, joined as always by Jason Collette. How you doing, my friend?
Buenos dias, man. I'm looking forward this time next week when we talk. There'll actually be baseball games happening right after we stop recording because I believe games start on Friday this week. So we're going to have some games to actually watch. That makes me excited.
It's it is that time of year where we actually finally get to see some things. Right now we're kind of following news, and this is the time of year where I think any sort of news moves the needle probably way too much.
Yeah.
Because we have gone so long without it, and so I always want to caution people, but having actual baseball on the docket is pretty exciting.
It is. It is very excited, especially when you look out the window and it's a pretty sloppy day here in Metro Charlotte. So yes, bring the spring. Let's go.
We're going to be doing that, and we're also going to be talking about a whole bunch of moves. Some are a little bit old that we just haven't had the opportunity to talk about, and then some are a little bit newer, maybe fell under the radar. With I think a lot of times with injuries that happen, we're so focused on talking about people's hamate bones breaking, we kind of forget some of these smaller ancillary moves that may actually have fairly decent sized dividends. So I definitely wanted to kind of go back and catch up on all the moves that have happened over the last few weeks and kind of have those discussions, especially guys who we may not be covering in the position previews. And we're going to go ADP order because you were actually nice enough to sort by ADP order. So let's start with the first one. Edwin Uceda, he was pulled from the WBC with a slightly bulky shoulder. Why did you add this one to the rundown?
Because I saw it this morning, and we're still trying to figure out the bullpen situation. I mean, you guys broke down where things were, and there are so few capital C closers this year. And you look at the Tampa Bay situation, and I think I've made this point a few times. I could make the case for 4 different guys to be the closer this year. And if I can do that, that means Kevin Cash can employ 4 different guys as the closer. And I know that Uceda has the second highest ADP of all the guys right now between Uceda and Jackson, Clevenger, and Baker. And there's also been some reports that the Rays are hearing off request for Garrett Clevenger. So that can narrow the situation down. So I bring this up to say, slow your roll a little bit with Uceda. Don't sleep on Garrett Clevenger. Don't sleep on Brian Baker. Pardon me. For those of you guys that are playing in draft and hold formats, I don't feel that Clevenger and Baker, unless something dramatically changes between now and when Fab drafts kick off. Well, I actually have one in about 3 hours, so they've already kicked off. But Clevenger, Baker, not an option for redraft league for Fab leagues right now. But for draft and hold, you should be considering them in the later rounds. But I was talking with somebody this morning. Would love to see Arizona do something. They're a projected 500 team, and their bullpen is still a hot mess. And Clevenger would be a really nice fit. So that's the kind of thing that would take. That's the kind of news that would elevate Clevenger from a later part of the draft and hold to a Fab draft consideration.
And we'll talk about a piece that Arizona did add to their bullpen here, and see if we think that that guy is going to be factoring in saves. I think right now Griffin Jax is probably the best bet in that bullpen. He's got the quote unquote experience kind of in the role at times throughout his career. That being said, this is why I don't invest in Tampa Bay saves, right? It's just way too difficult to figure out what they're going to do because they use so many different guys.
Yeah, but I know that point's been out there, but Fairbanks, while he was there the last couple of years, was getting a majority of those. As long as he was healthy, Fairbanks had those saves. So there's kind of a track record. If somebody does get this job, they could hold on to it. Jax has said he's wanted to be a starter and stretched out. So for me, when I look at all of it, I would not argue that Jax has the best skills of the situation. That point I would absolutely honor and respect. But the fact that he has those skills and he could work multiple innings tells me he may not be the guy first or second in line for that. And I'm fascinated to see what happens there because we already have enough questionable situations where some bullpen just have an absolute absence of talent. And this is not one of them. If anything, they have too much in the back end, and we got to figure out who that is.
Yeah, that's fair. moving right along, Zac Gallen quietly re-signs with Arizona. There was a lot of speculation about where he might end up. And in the end, he just returns back home to Arizona on, I believe, a 1-year deal. Any
with an
interest?
option.
Yeah, any interest in Zac Gallen? I mean, his skills, the health have been kind of question marks over the last few years. And I don't know that there's a ton there to really get super excited about.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't one of those news items he resigned. So it's like, great. And maybe by the time you get to main event season, starting pitching gets pushed up. Maybe that moves his ADP, but this doesn't. Right now, it's been 231 in the month of February. And I don't see this pushing him inside the top 200. He is where he is right now. I didn't put his min max range, but this is where he's been going. And I just don't see this changing. I'm not terribly excited about this. It gives Arizona a little more. I mean, they're projected to be a 500 team right now. Like I said, we'll get to their bullpen in a bit, but this gives them some nice depth in the rotation with Kelly and Gallen, Nelson, Rodriguez, Brandon Pfaadt, Mike Soroka. Like, they have a lot of pieces, and they may have to go 6-man rotation so they could stay out of that bullpen, because they've quantityed this rotation, but this bullpen I still can't believe this is what they're going forward with.
Yeah, I'm shocked this is what they're going with in terms of bullpen. In terms of Gallen, he was better in the second half, but a lot of that was buoyed up by 241 BABIP. And in the second half, the strikeouts went down, which is a little bit concerning to me. The whip went down, but again, he just wasn't looking for swing and miss. He was trying to make contact, or allow guys to make contact in order to get out of innings a little bit quicker. I just don't know if we're seeing the second half version of Gallen where he is relying on that defense, which is good. So, but we're not getting the swings and misses. He's just too boring. And like, there isn't enough upside, the kind of upside we saw kind of earlier on in his career when he was, top 25 starting pitcher. I just don't know that I'm super interested in Zac Gallen this year.
Yeah, I get it. You have been previously. So
I have been. Yeah.
That's notable.
A guy that I think we both have been interested in over the last, or at least over the course of his career is Chris Bassitt, who signs a deal, again, quiet deal signed in Baltimore. Any interest there?
Yeah, and I will say this. I have Chris Bassitt at $12 in a home 11-team AL only league. And right now he is above the fold for me as a keeper. So I'm putting that in context. I was thoroughly impressed with what I saw from him in October, more so than what I saw from him during the regular season. And so the move to Baltimore, obviously having a better situation in left field helps. But overall, I'd like this move. This was a really nice move by Baltimore, adjusting to, okay, we either lost out on the Framber Valdez situation or we didn't want to pay that much. And this was a really nice plan B option because it gives them Rogers and Bradish, Bassitt, Boz, Eflin. They have a lot of experience in this bullpen now. And they too are in the rotation rather. And they may too go with a 6-man rotation. But like, if you were taking early shares of Dean Kramer for right now, you may be squeezed out of this situation, because that 5, as long as everybody is good, and they don't go to a 6-man, that means Dean Kramer becomes a long man. Zach Eflin had the offseason back surgery. Shane Baz was somebody, it really hurt him pitching outdoors last year in Steinbrenner. He was somebody, if he had stayed with Tampa, I would have been all over trying for a rebound situation. And Baltimore should help that situation. Love what we saw from Rogers last year. Obviously, what we saw from Bradish in his rehab. I just really like this fit for Baltimore. And like I said, at $12 in an AL only format, Bassitt that's right at where I would feel comfortable taking him. And so I was trying to remember where he went in the draft champions that I just finished with things. But yeah, I really love this move. Fantasy wise, value this moved him up where I would have had him from other landing spots. So that's a nice situation. I wish they made these boards more. There's Chris Bassitt. He went 2 picks before me to Clay Link in the 23rd round. I ended up taking Brady Singer as my adjustment, but I would have preferred Bassitt.
Yeah, I mean, I love the move. It's just, for me, such an interesting strategy the Orioles are taking a year after it was clear that their strategy of like we're just going to figure it out with homegrown talent in our rotation. Did not work, right? They refused to spend the money to go out and get kind of a top tier starter. It seems like they're trying to quantity it as opposed to quality it. Like they've added, some, they brought back Eflin, they're adding in Bassitt. They added in Boz, but like no real like stud at the top of the rotation. They're like, we're going to throw out a bunch of 3 or 4s. And I don't know if you saw this kind of comment by Mikolas, the general manager. They want Cade Povich to throw 180 to 200 innings this year.
So I saw something, but I believe that somebody's hijacked social media account because it has a handle of somebody who isn't working for Mason anymore.
Oh,
but there's no way. I mean, so I took a look at that and I was like, wait a second, this doesn't look right. But even if let's pretend that was real. Let's pretend that statement was made. I went and looked at it. There were 21 pitchers last year that worked 180 innings, and there were 3 of those that worked 200. So you're saying a guy that has pitched almost 200 career innings with a 5-something ERA and a 1.5 home run 9, that's going to be the guy that you want to pitch 180 plus innings. So let's say if this was real, and if Cade Povich pitched 180 innings this season, something has gone drastically wrong with Baltimore. Drastically wrong. Now, I don't know. I didn't listen to the most recent episode that you and Paul did, but I don't know if you guys talked about the offensive side of things. I know you talked about Gunnar Henderson and the hammock bone, but what about Jordan Westburg and the oblique injury?
I mean, like when we talked about Westburg during, I think, the second or third base preview, I was, like I said, like, I think there is a good player under there, but like this guy has a really hard time staying on the field. And it is early on in a career to start calling him injury prone, but like you have to be able to play in order for you to unlock the potential that you have. And especially when I see him as a guy who tends to be kind of compiler-esque, accumulator-esque, you can't accumulate, you can't compile if you're on the IL.
Like I guess it helps Jeremiah Jackson's early value because he's the only other guy that I see on the roster that has third base experience. Blaze Alexander is going to be playing somewhere on the infield. I mean, they're going to have to substitute for Henderson, or I'm sorry, it's Holiday. Jackson Holiday's the guy with the injury, right? Why can't I keep these two straight? It's Henderson. No, it was Holiday. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So Blaze Alexander's covering for Holiday, and I would assume Jeremiah Jackson's going to be covering for Jordan Westburg because this is oblique. We know obliques take some time. You want to make sure that it goes. I personally, like I said, I have a online championship draft coming up at 2:00 today. Jordan Westburg's moved down a few rounds for me because these oblique injuries, we know from the work in the process that Jeff Zimmerman and Tanner Bell and others have worked on. These guys need about 50 plate appearances to get their timing right. Well, Jordan Westburg's not be able to get those 50 plate appearances for a while. So even if he does come back, let's say 6 weeks from the oblique injury, that puts him into the right at the start of the regular season. 50 at bats, assuming or plate appearances, assuming he gets all of them. That's a week to 10 days into the regular season. So it's like the first couple of scoring periods could be problematic. So again, I'm looking at Jordan Westburg not being an option for about 3 scoring periods.
Well, and they also have been playing or working out Kobe Mayo at third base in order for him to potentially cover. So
sure, why not?
That could be another person, especially if Westburg does start on the IL. Like I think we would probably expect him to at this point. Kobe Mayo might be an interesting guy to take a gamble on. We know he has a ton of power. He has not had success at the major league level, but they're running out of options there too.
Yep.
So we then have Nick Castellanos, who we did talk about, I think, on the Friday pod as someone who was cut by the Philadelphia Phillies after their issues with him bringing beer into the dugout, apparently. He signs a deal in San Diego. That was not one of the locations we had kind of discussed necessarily with him. And it's because they already had a guy in Miguel Andujar who was kind of seen as, the regular DH there. And they, also have, a guy like Gavin Sheets is there as well. So where are you at on Nick Castellanos now playing for the Padres?
Hopefully better than my camera at the moment. So I know watching on video, I appear frozen. I don't know what's going on there. Let me see if I can switch video sources. So I'm my first reaction when I saw this was like, what am I doing if I am Miguel Andujar? I'm like, wait a second. I just signed a deal with you guys. What are you doing to me? So when I try to look at this, at the worst case, I get it for the Padres. The Phillies are paying the money. The Padres are paying $800,000. The Padres did some serious thrift shopping this week, and we'll talk more about a few of them, but they basically ran into your local where you been or whatever, Goodwill, and just went into the back and was like, what's back there? Give it to me. And they were able to get this. So worst case, it's a first base platoon situation for Nick Castellanos if we're to believe he wants to play some first base. Maybe Miguel Andujar's playing first base. It just seemed like a weird fit right now. I don't know if this moves. We knew that Castellanos wasn't going to play for the Phillies anywhere, but I'm not sure where he gets his playing time here either. So I don't know. Yay, he has a job, but is he going to, he's 441 right now. Does he get inside the top 400? I don't see that path right now, nor do I really want him on my team, but
I don't know that I want him on my
accumulator.
team.
Yeah, he's an accumulator. If he can't play, he can't accumulate.
He's a name though, right? And so I think the ADP could jump up into that top 400 pretty easily because of the name value. But from a fantasy perspective, I don't know that I want Nick Castellanos in San Diego. This was not a great fit. I really thought Houston made the most sense for.
I agree. When I was listening to you and Paul the other day, I was like, oh, that Houston call is so good.
Right?
Nope.
But apparently not. Especially because it's not like, neither Andujar nor Nick Castellanos are left-handed bats. It's not even like there's a natural platoon fit there. Right now Fangraphs has Castellanos kind of platooning with Gavin Sheets, though. I mean, I guess Castellanos did say in the offseason he'd be open to playing first, so maybe he is going to be the short side for platoon first baseman if he can figure out the defensive side of things during spring training. It just doesn't seem like
somebody's going to have to put on a first base glove. It's not going to be good for defense, but somebody is going to have to put on a first base glove here.
Well, I assumed it was going to be something like, when Sheets wasn't playing first, they slide Cronenworth over to first base, and then Sungmung Song would play second. But, or Luis Campusano, I mean, could be technically like a natural platoon.
Well, the Padres could waive I mean, like I said, it's a nothing move for them. This is such a no-brainer thing. It's
if it doesn't work out, they can easily just throw
maybe Castellanos could still end up in Houston, but this is a no-brainer for them. It's like $800,000 here. Take it, and Phillies are paying 98% of your salary.
Yeah. Another guy that we've been kind of waiting on to kind of see where he would sign because he's had brief moments of fantasy viability over the course of his career. And that's Luis Rengifo. And he kind of lands in another spot that's kind of like, oh, I don't know how much I really like this one. He ends up in Milwaukee to play for the Brewers. Now they did just trade Durbin. So
their entire third base depth chart is what they traded.
So you think Luis Rengifo is just going to slide straight into kind of everyday playing time at third base?
I mean, first of all, as a tall person, I want to know what Milwaukee has against height because they keep acquiring these short guys. But I mean,
they like short guys who make contact.
They do. And so but I look at the Rengifo situation, and most of the guys that we're going to talk about, you notice that we have already said that it's not really changing their ADP value. There are some that are going to go up. I'm going to argue there are some that are going to get worse, even though they just got jobs. This is one of the ones I feel that there's a slight bump because of the situation Rengifo's going into. He's going into a situation where he's going to hit the bottom of the lineup, but this is a lineup that does like to run. Rengifo has run in the past, and he's still young enough to do that. And like we said, they traded away their entire third base depth chart. This should be his job, unless David Hamilton makes a lot of noise, but I'm not sure David Hamilton can play third base. David Hamilton appears to be taking the Andrew Monasterio, Isaac Collins type of role on the club where he can be a utility guy with that situation, but this should be Rengifo's job, and he should get all the playing time that he wants. So I'd like this landing spot for him, but I'm really more intrigued by how much they're going to leverage the speed and his ability to run. I mean, he just did steal 24 bases in 2024. That number came down last year with things, but we've seen him run before, and I'd like to see him run again under a manager that has a lead foot like Pat Murphy.
Yeah, this feels a lot like the kind of move you make as a failsafe for Jet Williams, right? Like, as soon as they traded away Durbin, a lot of people were looking at Jet Williams as like, oh, he could be the everyday shortstop, and you move Joey Ortiz back over to third, or Jet Williams is actually working out at third base a little bit apparently this offseason in preparation for potentially trying to make the team. But if Jet Williams isn't ready, then you need another option. And I think that is Luis Rengifo right here. And they do have guys with options on this roster that they can send down. So I do feel like this is his job for right now, Luis Rengifo. Like, he's going to likely be, unless Jet Williams is just amazing, at the dish and defensively during spring training. Like, I think Luis Rengifo's got this job, but I think he's on the hot seat. Like, I don't think he is, unless he produces, and he's also got to stay healthy, which is something Luis Rengifo has not been able to do very often in his career. He only has 2 seasons with 500 plate appearances. I think Jet Williams will take this job from him at some point.
Yeah, wouldn't argue. I mean, this Milwaukee is obviously a club that loves to leverage their internals and see what they can get from within. You look up and down that roster and just how many guys are some of their key players have been internal guys, and they've complemented it with some acquisitions. And Jet Williams will be one of those acquisitions. I would expect to see him at some time in 2026. It just how soon that happens depends on how well Rengifo or how poorly Rengifo plays.
And how well Jet Williams plays, right? Williams doesn't fit this traditional mold of Milwaukee high contact guys, right? So I think a lot of it will depend on, like, hey, can he make enough contact where the Brewers feel comfortable putting him in the everyday lineup? Because there's no reason to bring up Jet Williams to be a part-time player. When they're bringing up Jet Williams, it's to play every day. So I think he's going to have to probably prove some stuff in their on their AAA team. Or at least in spring training. Like I said, if Jet Williams is looking great in spring training, I think he just takes over this job from day one. So I think there is some risk to Rengifo not really having a regular role and kind of going back to that utility infielder role that he occupied so often with the Angels. All right. Sad news, I think, because a lot of us in the industry were really, really excited about Ben Rice. But the one thing I kept saying is the Yankees could still bring someone back in, someone like Paul Goldschmidt. And they signed Paul Goldschmidt to a deal. He is probably going to be on the short side of the platoon with Ben Rice. So I want to hear first your thoughts on Paul Goldschmidt returning to New York, but then second, how much does this ding Ben Rice? Because he's now not going to be an everyday player in the Bronx.
I dislike this move. I really do. I mean, Ben Rice went and Paul took him in the middle of the 5th round in the DC that he and I were just in. So he took him there. If we would have known this news then, Ben Rice probably drops a round or 2, but the catcher eligibility is that's what makes helping Rice stay there, right? That's where it stays. So we're still just another Giancarlo Stanton injury from Paul Goldschmidt becoming the TH and Rice is playing. So I tend to want to let these issues work themselves out. And the fact that Stanton has, he's just coming off a season where he was amazing, but he played 77 games, hit 24 home runs in 77 games. But we're just another Stanton injury from this situation going right back to where it was before the Goldschmidt signing. So I'm curious to see where Rice goes in the draft that I'm doing at 2:00 today. I would be shocked if he's still there in the 7th round. I would say that most people just don't care about the situation and are looking at it saying, yeah, this is still just a Stanton injury away from something happening, and go from there. But if you were reaching for Rice, obviously you're like, man, what the hell? Why'd you do this to me?
Yeah. There were people who were, especially because he's catcher eligible, he was, at one point projected it like third in this lineup every day. And like they're like 650 plate appearances from a catcher in Yankee Stadium who's got real power was really, really enticing. Obviously, you have to kind of temper your expectations on Rice. I also want to mention, because one of the other issues, or not issues, but side effects of this deal of bringing Paul Goldschmidt back in combination with everything else they have on the roster is Jason Dominguez is not making this team more than likely.
Yeah, I don't see how that happens. And that's kind of nutty. I mean, yeah, he's got his flaws, but with Bellinger, with them basically going right back into 2026 with what they did in 2025, it's kind of crazy that Dominguez is going to Scranton unless they make. But even if you were to make a trade with the Yankees, nobody's trading. What they need is another starter, and nobody's trading starting pitching. The one team that has all the starting pitching depth is Boston, and they're never making a deal with the Yankees to that caliber. So that's off the table. So it's just like,
is there?
I don't know. Maybe he's going to sit around like Jay Buhner and get traded for Ken Phelps and then break out with Seattle. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like I hate to keep going back to this team, but like I don't know what Houston has to trade for Jason Dominguez.
I'll quote Paul, nothing.
Yeah, I know. Like they don't really have, but they do have some pitching depth, right? If you look, like Houston's got like 8 starting pitchers right now that, like, you always need starting pitching. Like how many years have we said like, the Dodgers have too much starting pitching, and then you get halfway through the season, it's like the Dodgers don't have enough starting pitching. So like you never want to really trade a starter if you don't have to, but like, wouldn't Jason Dominguez be the perfect fit in Houston right now if there was a deal to be made?
Dominguez and Ryan McMahon for Isaac Paredes and a pitcher, like try to make something work, because Houston's very right-handed. And I get it. It's just kind of crazy to me. I know Dominguez has been taken in a lot of drafts. He was sitting there in early draft season. He was sitting there. You look at the projections, you're like, oh man, this looks good. And then every move the Yankees have made has been yet another. Yeah, we're not ready for this guy. We're not ready to give him the exposure. So it is. Well, I was looking back at my first draft of the season. I took Ben Rice 63rd overall back then. Mm-hmm. So I'm not. And Dominguez ended up going in the 18th round of that league. So both of those would slide down. It's just when I was talking with somebody about the Yankees this morning, it's like, why are they rolling back out with the exact same thing they had last year?
It's weird too, because I know the Rockies get a lot of shit for, being a team that like blocks off all their prospects and young guys. The Yankees don't, because they're the Yankees, but like you look at this roster and you go, man, like outside of Austin Wells, every player is 28 or older. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess Ben Rice is 27. But you've got a lot of guys in their, early to mid 30s on this team, and some guys, in their later 30s. Like this is a really old lineup. I don't love it, especially because we haven't even mentioned the fact that like Anthony Volpe will be coming back at some point, and that will add another roster crunch.
Yeah, where's he going to play? It's just like, right. What are they going to do? If I mean,
obviously,
I was just looking
work itself out, like, right?
Yeah,
because, like the Yankees are super injury prone, so like you said, like an injury to Stanton, an injury to somebody else, and all of a sudden this all works itself out one way or another. But just a weird roster construction.
And they got to work. I was looking through their depth chart. They still have your beat Vivas in their org. He is out of options, but there's no room for him at the end. The current infield, the current bench is Rosario, who they re-signed. Oswaldo Cabrera, because he plays the outfield, is probably going to make this roster, because Rosario, the other Goldschmidt doesn't. So there's no room at the end for Vivas. So there's going to be several of these guys here over the next couple of weeks that are out of options, that are going to get shifted around the clubs, where it's like, okay, you got a guy out of options, I got a guy out of options. Let's make a trade because I need this position and I don't have room for this one. So I'm curious to see where that plays out. But yeah, this roster is. I'm not a Yankees fan. I know some, and they're like, nobody seems to be impressed with what they've done in this offseason. They brought back the same crew, and I don't understand exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't either. One of the teams I do understand what they're doing, and I kind of love this move, is your Tampa Bay Rays. signing my boy Nick Martinez to a deal. What are your thoughts on Nick Martinez heading to Tampa?
Yeah, I like this a lot better with them being returning to the indoors. So it's with all the pitching, the fact that I was talking about this yesterday on XM with Peter Shanky and Todd Zola. It's like one of the undersold things about pitching at Steinbrenner Field was the cramped foul territory. There was just none. So like a pop-up, if the catcher had to make or the corner infielders took 4 steps in either direction, they were against the wall. That's not the situation in Tropicana Field. And so Martinez, with his pitching style, should be able to benefit from that type of soft contact, getting those pop-ups and all that type of stuff. So I like the move for him, and he'll be in the rotation. Yeah, honestly, you don't know what I like them getting Matz and getting Martinez and trying to figure out what's going to happen if something happens to Shane McClanahan again. You know, each of the past 2 years, they've gone into the season expecting him to do something, and he hasn't thrown a pitch. So you have to be able to insulate yourself from that. And this way they have, if something were to happen again, they still have Ian Seymour, Joe Boyle, Joe Rock, all in the 40-man rotation, all probably going back to Durham to work on things. Boyle may go to the bullpen. We don't know yet in that capacity, but I like the move for Nick Martinez. It's a really nice landing spot. And again, one of the few people where it's like, oh, okay, he signed somebody. We can see his ADP going up right now. His ADP was 502. He's going to be moving up a couple of rounds. I would say he's going to be in the 450 to 475 range.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of love this move. Martinez has been a guy who's had kind of spurts of relevancy, especially look at his, seasons between 22 and 24. Last year was kind of a down year, but got moved back into the bullpen towards the end of the season. But like, Tampa Bay maximizes these type of guys, right? Like the guys who can't always be a full-time starter, but need to, stay in kind of that multi-inning role, whether as an opener or as a follower. Love to see Nick Martinez get an opener because I think that would make him extremely valuable. But right now, currently going, I think you said at pick 502.
502.
Like, that'll go up a little bit, but I don't think it's going to break into that 450 threshold where it's the 15 team fab league. So
how about this? I was just looking back at a DC 50 I did. It ended about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Nick Martinez went in the 43rd round.
Yeah.
And the draft champions that I just wrapped up yesterday, and this happened right before Nick Martinez news broke. Nick Martinez went to Todd Zola in the 30th round.
Yeah.
So before the news broke, he was already making some moves. And now that he's landed somewhere, I could see Nick Martinez possibly sneaking into this was a 15-team league. He went 30th before he had a job. Now that he's got a job, I still don't see him going in the active phase, but he's going to be a higher reserve pick than he was.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Then we have Justin Verlander returning to his roots in Detroit. This is a great landing spot for Verlander. Kind of muddies the water for those of us who are big Troy Melton fan. Paul doesn't seem too worried about it. Are you?
No, I heard what Paul said, and I'm in the same boat. It's just like, I feel like this is more of a feel-good story than anything. And when you look at what they have, I still like this bullpen a lot. I know that others don't, but I do like this bullpen. And I don't know why people don't like it as much, but between Jansen and Vest and Finnegan, a rebound from Brisky, Holton, I like what the bullpen has there. And the fact that you can almost give the bullpen 2 full days off when Skubal and Valdez are pitching, you basically need like 2 innings from your pen on those days. So they're going to be able to get that extra rest from that pen. So I like Verlander as a streaming option type of thing, but this isn't somebody that I want to spend an active draft pick on to be like, oh, hey, he's back in Detroit. This is a good club. We'll see what happens. I'll take him as a reserve and maybe stream him.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those guys that, and I haven't looked, maybe I can look as I talk. I haven't looked at the Tigers' early season schedule to see, like, do they have, like, a really nice start to the season where you could maybe draft him early on or draft him kind of later in your draft and kind of use him and then drop him. And of course, for some reason, I'm not able to pull up.
I'll tell you, they are home opener, so they open against. They open on the road with San Diego and Arizona. They come home with St. Louis, Minnesota, Miami. Their early schedule is good for this purpose.
Yeah, so I mean, like in a 15-team mix, like you could put Verlander on the back end of your roster, use him for 3 or 4 games, especially if it looks decent in spring, and then drop him. Now, there's always risk because obviously Verlander is not the pitcher that he was early on in his career. But I mean, last season, 3.85 ERA and 152 innings. With it was a 136 whip, so it's kind of a whip killer, but like did a decent job of keeping the ball in the ballpark. It was San Francisco, so that could regress a little bit, but didn't walk too many guys. Verlander had a 8% walk rate last year. The strikeouts have dried up, which is part of kind of the issue in terms of Verlander's overall value, but that's more of a volume thing. And if you're just looking to stream and pick up some wins because Detroit's gonna be pretty good, I don't mind Verlander as kind of like a late game gamble that you can use until you figure out someone better off the wire.
I will say this: he's one of those guys where, like, if you're in an auction and you say $1, somebody's going to say $2. Right?
Oh, really? I don't think anybody's going to say $2.
Somebody's going. I don't know. I'd like to hear from someone where that happens. But if you throw them out at $1, it's going to be like.
I think the room goes quiet.
$2.
I think the room goes quiet.
I'm not going to be that person because I honestly, like, I have AL labor coming up in a couple of weeks. I don't want to spend $2 on him, but I figured like somebody would.
In an AL, you'll get 2 for sure.
Yeah.
But like looking at like guys going around him, God, it gets really ugly at that point.
He went in the 43rd round.
Yeah.
To the 43rd round of the DC 50 that I did. And then we knew he had the job, but he went to the 35th round to Jeff Erickson.
Well, I mean, like, there are some interesting guys going a little bit above him. Rhett Lauder, Kumar Rocker, the aforementioned Nick Martinez. So, yeah, that's tough. I don't know that I would say 2 personally, but maybe someone in an AL only would. Then we have another kind of old favorite of the show. I don't know if you've ever been an Aaron Civale fan, but I know Paul and I have had brief moments of interest in him. Aaron Civale's gonna head to Sacramento, which to me just kind of ruins all of his any sort of fantasy relevance he might have.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned earlier that there's going to be some guys whose ADP gets worse despite where they've signed. This is one of those.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, he's almost a Rockies pitcher at this point. He may as well sign with Colorado, and we'll get to that in a second too. But he may as well have signed with the Rockies because he is useless at home. And now you're looking at advantageous road starts as the only. Like, I'll let him sit on Fab and look for a 2-start week where he's projected to start both games on the road. Otherwise, I don't want any part of this.
Yeah, I don't. There's very few pitchers I'm interested in Sacramento. Like it's Jeffrey Springs,
because you can't quit him.
Yeah, and I won't quit him. But I have not pulled the trigger on Springs this year. But like, Jeffrey Springs is still of interest to me. Jacob Lopez, if he's healthy, would be of interest. Luis Morales is a little bit of interest, but like Aaron Civale just seems like super dangerous in Sacramento.
Yeah, I'm looking at like a 12-team online championship ADP. Lopez and Morales are the only two, and Severino and Mark Leiter Jr. along with Justin Sterner. So your namesake is the only guy that I'm even interested in on that roster, and I've taken him. But everybody else, hard pass.
Yeah, no, I'm totally fine with that. If you don't want to fall for the Jeffrey Springs trap, you don't have to.
And they're all going, like, when you look at ADP, like, everybody's green. In the drafts that I've been in, they've all gone green. Like, oh, hey, look, you got a value. It's like nobody wants to take these guys sitting out there, and I get it. So, I'm looking back at the other ones, and yeah, I mean, Lopez, you can see some things. There's some usability on the road. It's just, but I remember he had a problem with a forearm strain at some point last year, and that kind of scares me.
That scares the crap out of me too. So I probably won't be drafting him either. All right. What about another old friend of the show, Chris Paddack, heading to Miami? Any interest there?
I will quote what Derek Van Riper said in our DC chat room: "Never Paddack."
Yeah, I
Never
mean,
Paddack. No, it's just now. I would say this time last year, Paddack was in the Minnesota rotation. We were all trying to say, "God, get this guy out of here, please. We want David Fedde. We want Zebby Matthews. Why is this guy in here?" And it didn't take Chris Paddack long to show why we wanted him out of there. There were times I would like to see Paddack work as a reliever. I don't feel he's a starter, but I feel like if he could go into the bullpen and dial it up a little bit and use that changeup, he could be of some value. But he is just an inning soaker and not a good one. Like, he can go out there and give you 5, but you can literally watch him fall apart in an outing when he's going through the lineup again. So if Miami's using a rotation, but if Paddack were to go to the bullpen, I would at least be intrigued in a draft and hold situation, but that season's almost over. I have no interest in this guy as a starter.
I think Paddack is just a placeholder, right? Like, they have two really, really interesting top 50 pitching prospects in Robbie Snelling and Thomas White.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is, hey, we need rotation depth, but we also got these two prospects who aren't on the 40-man that will probably be up at some point early on in the year. And we just need a guy who can pitch for a month or two, right? And so
Paddack's your man.
Yeah, I think Chris Paddack is that guy. So from a fantasy perspective, I'm not interested at all. I don't think the Marlins are going to be very good. Yes, the park is helpful, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of win potential. I don't think there's a lot of upside in Chris Paddack, but it just kind of is a placeholder kind of guy for these two prospects who are going to be pretty interesting when they do come up. I think if you were investing in Snelling or White in draft champions, or even maybe as a stash in a fab league, just think you're gonna have to probably wait now. I think this kind of closes the door on them, especially since they're not on the 40-man. That I don't think they're going to be up until at earliest early May, and more likely we're talking end of May. All right, then we move right along. And again, another old friend of the podcast, at least my old friend. I can't remember how interested you were in Jordan Montgomery at points, but I was a big Jordan Montgomery fan at one point. He's heading back to Texas. Any interest here?
No, because he's honestly heading back to Texas to rehab for the most part. I believe this was a 2-year deal, so this is more of he may pitch at some point this year, but it's going to be all the way. It's going to be
a 1 year. It's a 1 year.
Oh, I still don't think he's draftable. This is from what I understand, he's not somebody that we're going to see until the second half of the season, unless you're in the draft and hold and you're remembering the research that Jeff talked about when he was on this podcast last month. Basically 20% of the guys that you draft after round 40 never even throw a pitch. So it's if you want to take one of those darts in the last 10 rounds, fine. But otherwise, I don't find Jordan Montgomery to be draftable.
Yeah, I don't think you're drafting Montgomery at all. This is a guy that if he starts to get close to being ready to get to the majors, you pick him up off of the wire if he looks good. But Montgomery was one of these guys that was never an overpowering pitcher to begin with. He really, really relied on command control. He's coming back from an injury. Typically, the command and control are the things that are the last to come back when you're coming back off of elbow injuries. So I don't know that I've got any real interest in Jordan Montgomery for this year. More of a watch list guy in a really, really deep league. All right, let's head out to another old friend. Yeah, we're just doing old friend section of the podcast because we got a couple more even after this. We had been talking about Jose Quintana, placing him on different teams, and he just goes out and says, "I'm going to Colorado, baby." Zero interest in Quintana, right?
Less than zero. Now, this is probably the prime example of, hey, he got a job. Oh, yikes. So, trivia question, Justin. Who was the last Colorado starting pitcher to work at least 100 innings in a season and post an ERA below 4?
Germán Marquez.
That would be a decent guess, and he did have a 3.77 ERA in 2018, but he had a teammate that year that pitched to a 2.85 ERA in 202 innings. Do you remember him?
What year was this?
2018. Lefty.
It's not Kyle Freeland.
It is Kyle Freeland.
Oh my
God. That's that one. And then John Gray in 2019 had a 3.84 ERA in 150 innings. That is the last Colorado Rocky pitcher to have an ERA below 4 and work at least 100 innings in a regular season. So now Quintana's not going to be the worst, because remember, they also signed Sugano, and Sugano may pitch to a 7.50 ERA this year. That is about the worst fit of a pitcher I have ever seen to a park, and it's going to be crazy to watch the Rockies pitch. I mean, Quintana can at least go out there. Maybe Quintana could do a Kyle Freeland. I still can't tell you how Kyle Freeland did what he did in 2018. But the fact that Kyle Freeland did it means that Quintana could possibly do it.
There's no world in which you're drafting this guy, right? Like,
no.
Like, not
no,
NL only.
I'm sorry. Well, if I'm an NL only labor, which I'm not, but if I'm an NL only labor, I could take, that's going to be innings. You get an innings cap. I could spend $1, or I could go into the reserves and do Jose Quintana. But that's the only window of anything that I would take Quintana.
One scenario in which I'm drafting Jose Quintana, and I mean, we can just kind of throw in Sugano here as well. And that is a scenario in which I have a dynasty league in which I have an innings minimum I have to hit in order to not lose draft picks, and I'm rebuilding. Right? Like, these guys are going to throw innings for the Rockies. So, like, if you are in a position, and I have leagues like this where, like, I have to hit 900 innings or whatever it is in order to qualify and not lose draft picks, those guys will be on my rosters, right? Like, I will wait till the end of the draft or pick them up off the waiver wire and throw them onto those keeper dynasty league teams where I know I'm not competing. And they're perfect because they will ruin my ratios while giving me innings, which is perfectly what you want to do in that scenario. So it pushes me down the standings. But in no scenario where I'm trying to win am I drafting Quintana or Sugano this year. Griffin Canning, again, another old friend. This was Canning, was the talk of Arizona Fall League one year. I mean, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing Griffin Canning's name and Aaron Ashby's name. Neither of those have ever really worked out to the way that we thought they were. But he signs a deal in one of these guys who's going to the Padres on the cheap. Any interest in Griffin Canning? ADP 714. Obviously, it's going to go up, but it ain't going to go up that much where he's not still free.
Yeah, and I mentioned that the Padres went bargain bin shopping, and this would be one of those examples. But I don't know when he comes back, because remember, the last time we saw him pitch, his Achilles tendon ruptured. Yeah, not just tore, like ruptured, popped, gone at the end of June. And so I don't feel, he's a fab. Just leave him on the fab pile. Even in the draft and hold, you have other options, but we don't know when he comes back from this. But the Padres, all they're doing here is trying to get depth. They need pitching depth. And we're gonna eventually talk about another guy they landed here, but they need pitching depth. They've got King and Pavetta and Musgrove coming back from things. Vasquez, the guy we'll talk about, Marquez a couple of minutes, but they needed depth, and this is what they need in that organization, because JP Sears, Kyle Hart, Matt Waldron, that's the rest of it. They are going to quantity this situation. And that's what they're going to do, just throw options at it. Matt Waldron's another one of those guys out of options. So it'll be curious to see what San Diego does with the knuckleballer there, because he's out of options. But when you look at the fact that they've added the last couple of weeks with things with, they got Vasquez competing for that job. Right now the rotation's all righties, which may give Sears the upside for getting a spot there as well. So I'd be curious to see what they do with Matt Waldron, because he is out of options.
Yeah.
I would love the knuckleball's got to stay in baseball. We need more knuckleballers. And I would love to see Matt Waldron end up in a spot where he can just go have some fun with it.
Jeff Zimmerman, in his, I think one of his most recent Mining the News, said that Griffin Canning was throwing, topping out at 93 during his showcase. Yep. He was sitting 94. Yeah. So he's still probably got a ways to go. He had the surgery in July. typically that's a 12-month recovery. So I would not expect Griffin Canning back until mid-season. And often that can be a longer recovery. He might not even pitch this year. I think this is just a really, really cheap gamble. And they have a mutual option for 2027. So I think this is more about, hey, Griffin Canning's going to get back in shape this year. And then maybe next year be a pitcher in that Padres rotation if they both want him to return. Another friend of the podcast, or at least a friend of mine. I've always been an MJ Melendez fan. Just never really did much after that kind of really intriguing debut. He goes to the Mets. Any interest there?
I love this move because it means I cannot draft him in AL drafts anymore, because I have long been a sucker for Melendez. He's always ended up in one of my teams in some capacity, because I look at the contact rates, I look at the heart, I'm like, the what if, and I try to wish cast success on this guy, and I've taken him in some draft every year. And so the fact that he's in the NL means I cannot take him in labor, cannot take him in talent, and I love this move. Oh, but for Melendez, yeah, sure. We'll see what happens. But this is more of a selfish, thank God I can't draft this guy anymore, because watch, he'll break out, because this is the 1 year I will quit on him in mixed leagues, because he's just not mixed league draftable. But I don't have an NL only league, so I can't draft the guy. But there's long been talent under the hood. He just has not tapped into it at the major league level on a consistent basis.
It's interesting.
Maybe that's Kansas City's fault, though. Maybe it's a change of scenery, different hitting coach, and they find something with him. But it just didn't work out in Kansas City.
It's interesting. He's only 27, so he's still fairly young. He signed
magic age.
Yeah, he signed a $1.5 million major league deal, but Roster Resource doesn't even have him in the major leagues, because they don't have a lot of guys with options outside of Carson Bench, who they've said they're going to give him an opportunity to make the team. I don't know. I mean, I feel like this puts Melendez potentially on this team. And I don't know. I kind of like this spot. Like, Melendez's ADP is nothing, right? It's currently 720. I don't think this is going to go up very much. So, like, I think he's kind of a really, really cheap draft champions guy. I think he's going to play more than Roster Resource does. They gave him $1.5 million. That's not nothing. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's a major league deal.
The aforementioned draft champions, we didn't even draft him.
Yeah, like it
wasn't even taken.
It's a major league deal, so like I guess they could just option him down, right? He does have options, I believe. So
he's got one.
Like, I don't know why you give him a major league deal and then option him down. Oh no, it's a splits contract. So it's $1 million. It's 1.5 if he makes the team, 425,000 if he doesn't. Okay, there you go. Maybe he doesn't make the team. Maybe this is just Carson Bench insurance if they don't think Bench is ready. So
maybe
I deep leagues, NL only, someone to keep an eye on for sure. This next one I don't find super interesting, but it was a major league deal, and we probably should discuss it. Maybe this goes in the same kind of bucket as a Quintana and the Sugano kind of deals, where you're just going to draft him to hurt your dynasty league ratios.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, take everything we said about Quintana and Sugano and apply it to Mikolas and move on. There is nothing here for you to consider putting him on your team other than that context of you have an innings limit and you're trying to kill your team into standings to get a better draft pick.
Right now, Fangraphs Roster Resource has Miles Mikolas as the SP1 in Washington. What are they doing with this rotation?
No, I have no idea. I want to see Josiah Gray succeed coming back off his his injury. And Cade Cavalli to do something, but man alive, this is a bad pitching. Bad pitching. It's like, okay, hey, Clayton, this is one of those situations looking at the bullpen. It's like you're in a desert. If you're in an NL only league, you got to navigate the Cardinals, the Nationals, the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks bullpen and figure out, okay, we have 15 teams. almost a third of them have just a giant cloud at closer. What are we doing? And I would argue of the 4 teams that I just mentioned, the Nationals may be the most set with Clayton Beeter by default. Clayton Beeter has some upside, but this is it. This is what they are, and this could be like we poked a lot of fun at the White Sox. The only difference between the White Sox a couple of years ago and this club is this club has some offense. And the offense is going to help them win some games. But this pitching is going to absolutely lose them games.
It is one of the weirdest constructed teams I've seen in a long time, because this offense is so young in Washington and so intriguing, and they've got more pieces coming for the offense. And then you look at the pitching staff, and not only like we could play congressman or pitcher.
Yes, we could,
with just the Washington Nationals. And
who's the oldest player by age? But I have it. So who's the oldest player by age on the roster? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. The offense. Looking at the offense.
On the offense.
Yeah.
Is it Luis Garcia Jr.?
It is not. It is Drew Milius, the backup catcher, is 28. That's it. Everybody else on the projected opening day roster is under the age of 28.
I mean, the offense is really, really intriguing. Like, the offense is going to be really, really fun to watch. The pitching is just, I mean, it is
so bad.
I mean, Foster Griffin, Brad Lord, Miles Mikolas, Cade Cavalli, Josiah Gray is the rotation right now. You've got people in this bullpen that, like, who is Griff McGarry? Like Julian Fernandez, Cole Henry.
He's from the mighty Arizona 13th. That's where he's from.
I mean, this is, and like there's nothing coming either from the starting pitching perspective. Like, you look at the minor leagues, like, you know, the only really intriguing arm is a 27-year-old former prospect in Jake Eder. Like, that's it. Like,
they picked up Ken Waldichuk after he got dumped by a couple. Waldichuk's coming back from injury.
I do want to mention for the prospect people out there, they have Jarlin Susana and Travis Yorka, who are top tier pitching prospects, but coming off of injuries. So
yeah,
like, yes, they've got those two guys, but like, they're coming off of injuries. They're not really going to factor massively in this year, I don't think. This is a truly.
They did just sign Cionel Perez. Did I see that right? Yeah, they just signed him to a deal, and there was apparently, like, they signed him to a minor league deal with an invite to camp. That would be a bullpen situation, and that may actually help their bullpen.
Yeah, they also signed Trevor Gott, who's had some moments of relevancy as a bullpen.
I just want to find not that I do any daily gambling anymore, but I would love to see any game where the Nationals are picked as the favorite this year.
Yeah,
it's got to be like against the Rockies.
From a DFS perspective, you just stack against the Nationals all year long.
Yeah,
like this is truly terrible. All right, that's enough national pitching bashing. So
hey, let's get back to another bad situation.
Yeah, let's go from one bad bullpen, or, well, the next one is bad bullpen as well. The Nationals just have bad pitching in general. But we mentioned before the Arizona Diamondbacks and their kind of terrible bullpen situation. They add Paul Sewald to the fray. Is he going to turn out to be the closer potentially? He's currently going pick 734. Like, that's super cheap for a guy who might actually jump into the conversation.
Bubba took him as Mr. Irrelevant in our draft champions. He was picked 750. And I would say this as a lesson learned last year. I honestly was considering taking him, but I went with Steven Okert myself 3 picks prior. But I would say this, a year removed from us fully dismissing Emilio Pagan as being an effective closing solution once he landed in Cincinnati, we can't write off Paul Sewald. You just can't. I'm looking at you look over here. Look, last year is stuff plus 113, location 99, pitching plus 109. The fastball stuff plus 122. Yeah, there's some problems. Yeah, we know he gives up home runs, but the strikeout minus walk rate has been serviceable. He gives up home runs. This is like Emilio Pagan again. And so I love to pick my Bubba as Mr. Irrelevant. This has been a bad situation, but if you make me take one guy from this bullpen, it's Paul Sewald. I don't trust anybody else longer than a weak situation. But what Sewald has that the other guys don't is the experience of doing the job. Sewald has 52 saves over the past 3 years, 72 over the past 4 years. They come with flaws, but he has the experience. And now I feel like we at least have a little more clarity in this bullpen. And for Bubba to get him in the 50th round is really good. I probably got to kick myself later for not taking him when I had the chance to do it myself. But I looked at it and I was like, there's too many flaws here. But given this is what Arizona's doing, and if you're going into a draft this week and need to spec on saves very late, this is your guy.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think he is, if not at least sharing the job, I think he is going to get an opportunity to just win this job outright. And if he looks halfway decent in spring, I think he could do it. Like, there are just not many other options. This is such an interesting team from a bullpen construction perspective. Like, they have not added anything to this bullpen that is of any consequence. And I just think that Sewald, like, he has that kind of capital C closer kind of history where, like, he has shown that he can be a closer in the bigs. I think they're going to give him this job, and there's no reason to think he can't run with it if he's pitching decently. So I think of all the guys we're talking about late, he probably is the most intriguing on this episode.
Yep. Easily. I mean, honestly, for me, easily. I know some of you guys listening going, "Oh man, I'm out." I do a 12-team mixed league, and these guys are talking about guys they haven't talked about one I really care about since
he's going to be
Castellanos.
Yeah, but he could actually be 12-team relevant, right? Like, he
absolutely. If they come out in the next week and say he's the closer, he jumps big.
Yeah, absolutely. So go grab him now if you're in early drafts. All right, moving away from Arizona back over to San Diego for another one of their bargain bin guys, and that's Germán Marquez. They added him to the rotation. Any interest?
Yes. NL only streaming interest for now. I want to see how he bounces back. I mean, we saw him pitch. What we saw from him last year just was terrible, but it was him, his first full season coming back, or full for him coming back from his problems. But it's like we've seen him pitch to some level of success in Colorado before. And ideally, I still like to see this guy in the bullpen. So before he retires, I would like to see him play out in the bullpen. But let's see what's there. I'm in a 12-team NL. I could see Marquez ending up in my reserves.
Yeah, that's fair. I want to see him pitch first. So we'll get to see that here shortly. But yeah, somewhat interesting now that he's finally out of Colorado. We just kind of wish he would have gotten out of Colorado a lot sooner than at this point in his career.
Yeah.
Wasted a lot of time in San Diego. A guy that I really don't have any interest in, but you and
me both.
Erick Fedde.
I thought we were moving it. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, Erick Fedde in heading back to Chicago. No interest.
No, done. And the only other notes we had was Felix Bautista. If you're throwing late round darts, the Orioles appear to be in absolutely no rush to get him to pitch again to come a return in 2026. I already felt like it was a wasted pick, but that just solidifies what my thought was with Bautista. But they signed Ren Helsey for 2 years. They've got other options in that bullpen. They don't need Bautista to rush back. And then Mark Canha, for those who just can't quit the guy, has a minor league deal with the Rangers. Not draft. Like I said, draft and hold season is just about over here, and we're just talking 50th round picks, if anything. There.
Yeah. All right, that's gonna wrap us up for this episode. Jason, want to remind everybody where you can be reached and what you're working on.
Find me at Blue Sky at Jason Collette. You can also find me at RotoWire at Collette Calls. The bold prediction series completely done. I did one this week on value in the scrap heap, which is another annual thing that I've done. And now I'm working on a piece about the World Baseball Classic and the impact of that. Because one of our listeners, a friend of mine, Jeff, who won the Moneyball League, was like, hey, you should write about this or talk about it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write about it. So I'm working on that right now because I take requests. And so that'll be up this week. And then I have a OC later today. I am doing a mock draft with Howard Bender and some other people tomorrow night. And and then, still getting ready for labor. So I'll be heading out the end of the month to Arizona to get back into the winning after winning it in 23 and finishing second in 20 and 24 and not finishing in either one of those spots last year. I want to get back up there again this year.
All right. You can reach me on all social media platforms, Justin Mason FWFB, writing 4 to 5 times a week at Fangraphs and multiple times a week at Fantasy Pros. And then you can hear me on this podcast and Friends with Fantasy Benefits podcast. That will wrap us up for this episode. For Chase and myself, thanks for listening. A fantastic baseball offseason.
See you next week.